Yesterday was like -27. Today, I'm grilling kebabs outside. Life in Canada. Welcome back to day 21 of Theology BookMAS. I gotta make this one quick because there is a WWE event happening and, well, we're a big WWE family. So I gotta make my way down there for those boys because they're excited. Today's books. Yes, I said books. Another cop-out. But today's books are Preaching That Moves People by Yancey Arrington and the classic Preaching and Preachers by Martin Lloyd-Jones, the good doctor. So, story behind this is that I was a senior pastor in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Canada, and yes, that's a real place. And I felt like I was missing something from my preaching. I felt like I was getting the text right. I didn't feel like I was missing anything there. I felt like I was getting like the good material that I needed out of it, but I was just having a hard time of being able to communicate that to my congregation in a way that kept their attention. Now, I know that capturing people's attention is not the main job of a pastor or preacher. But at the same time, you gotta rely on the Holy Spirit for the Holy Spirit to be working in their hearts to apply the truth of the word to their hearts. But you also need to do it in a way that you're not boring and that you're not getting in the way of that. And I felt that, not necessarily that I was getting in the way of it, I just felt like I could do a lot better of a job of being able to communicate that. And so I started reading a lot of books on preaching. And, honestly, this has been like an ongoing thing of me just trying to figure out how to do my craft a little bit better. And, it is a craft. It's got to be something that you work on and that you do and that you spend time, study to show thyself approved, right? So I've been reading a lot on preaching for a couple years now. And I read this right when it came out. A friend of mine had posted on Instagram that he really enjoyed it, so I picked it up, and I'm so glad that I did. Not a lot of people know about this book, but this book is a pastor who's been preaching for a long time, just giving like practical tips to younger preachers, and I was so blessed by this book. I'm so thankful because basically what he's doing, that like classic pastor phrase of, are you tracking with me? It's basically that, like, how to make sure that your people are tracking with you and that you're making it as easy as possible for them to track with you. And also about finding your own pastoral voice or preaching voice and not just sounding like John MacArthur or John Piper or someone like that, but that God has called you to pastor your congregation. So I really appreciate this book. I go back to it pretty often. It's really new. Only came out just a few years ago. 2018. Yeah. So if you haven't read this book, I'd encourage you to go out and do that. And then, of course, you got to put this on the list somewhere. I honestly, I don't think I had read this until like 4 or 5 years ago now. I love this book. It's been so helpful. It's about preaching, but it's more about just Christianity in general and preaching as like the main example of what's happening in evangelicalism, and it was happening in Martin Lloyd-Jones's day, and it's still happening today. And so, yes, there's a lot of practical tips on how to preach, just like this is actually very similar to Lectures to My Students by Charles Spurgeon. It's basically that. I think this was given originally as like a lecture series to college students, so that makes sense that it's very similar. But I would encourage anyone to read this book. It's a great entry point into Martin Lloyd-Jones. And you can't tell, I like Martin Lloyd-Jones quite a bit. So I had to put this book on there somewhere. But today, those are the books. Tomorrow will be just one. It'll just be one book, I promise. And I'll see you then.
Let's go, McIntyre, dun, 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 dun. Let's go, McIntyre, dun, 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 dun.